Good morning. Trying something new. Dang it. Got a mosquito in my coffee. I don't know if y'all can hear me, but I'm not sure anybody's even there. But I got a few things I want to say this morning. And I got a mosquito in here, so I'm still going to drink it though. Because that's just me. If you knew how many, first of all, I'm not even sure. Can y'all hear me? Good morning, Alicia. How you doing? Good morning, Diane. So I think y'all can hear me. Okay, I'm trying this thing with my ear plugs. I see people do this. You can hear them better. And of course, I'm fading in and out of darkness. So I'm gonna try not to move. I can't position this thing and get the sun right. So anyway, I'm gonna drink my coffee this morning and drink my mosquitoes. But there's a strategy. This is what when you get old. This is what y'all have to. Don't get old. Young people, if you have a chance, don't ever get old. Because, yeah, it's a little protein. And maybe that'll help. It'll connect the brain passageways, a little protein in the coffee. So I can kind of connect my thoughts here and kind of get it out. And if I start to choke a little bit, then that's, what it is. And that can be a great topic into why mosquitoes exist. I hate me some mosquitoes, but they serve a purpose, man. Read some French studies about, they were doing studies on GMO, and they realized that genes get passed in our gut line. And so with cattle, they were feeding GMOs to a particular crop. I think it was the corn. The cattle start manufacturing the Bt pesticide in their stomach lining, which was groundbreaking because it basically meant that our genes are constantly picking up DNA from everything they come in contact with. Great for studies into why not to mess with genetic engineering, because it's just hacking, and we don't even know how our bodies even work yet. But also to understand that the mosquito's here for a reason. It's transferring DNA between various species, and don't spray for it. Don't be scared of Zika. Don't spray carcinogens in the neighborhood, killing a bunch of folk. All right. So kind of get down to what I wanted to talk about. And that's the scary part, because now the mosquito's gone. Look. Oh, no, there he is. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't eat him yet. Okay, let me put this down. Let me try to get serious here for a minute. It's a serious topic. So I think a lot of times I talked about when I used to be an activist and served on the board of a few nonprofits for children's rights, and it kind of led us down a path into looking at child protection and foster care and how all that stuff works out. And for me, the topics that have my interest. Oh, and I'm trying to get used to this. So if you don't mind, would appreciate you sharing, mainly because I don't talk about me. I don't talk about my family. I talk about what I think people need to think about, which is everyone's talking about them and what they can get and what their family needs or what their group wants. And me, I try to talk about what do we need as a nation? Mostly what do kids need? Where do we need to go as a group? And so I try to have a balanced perspective across, all groups. No interest in my group. So I woke up this morning and I saw this post, and it was one of those articles that talk about spanking, and I posted it on my profile this morning. And it was just basically talking about the beginnings of it, the problems with spanking children. And I read like the first paragraph and I stopped because it took me back down memory lane. It reminded me of some of the reports they used to put out when they were justifying the social engineering that, we'll call them I hate words, because words, people disagree and agree with you based on a word if they associate themselves with that group. But I'll call it legacy liberal. Okay. I think I talked about it a little while ago, which is part of why we have Trump in office is because the legacy liberals went too far social engineering. They went too far telling everybody how they had to raise their children, all the different things that happen in child custody cases. And there was a law called the Welfare Reform Act, and unfortunately was one of Clinton's laws. And in that law, what it basically did is it centrally managed a child trafficking system. Most of y'all know it probably by Child Protective Services. I've had some very interesting engagements with them. And before I go too far down that rabbit hole, I want to say this first, and that is there are some wonderful, amazing people who work in child protection. One of the managers I know, she won't retire because she says that, if I retire, good morning, Trent. If I retire, who is going to look out for these children? Who is going to look out for the babies? Like she gets that this is a number system. If you look at the turnover rates when young people graduate from college and they go into child protection and social workers, they last about 3, 4, 5 years and they're gone. And mainly it's because they went in to help children and they realized they got into a system that's about numbers. So anyway, what the report was talking about spanking children. And I know what these reports are for. I've seen these reports before. These reports are designed to justify taking children from parents. So don't start. Don't start falling into the trap of these centrally managed ideas. Like what we talk about a lot is like how we get brainwashed. Like how do they do it? It's amazing how they walk us into these ideas. And they do these a lot through these little reports. Like they'll release little things, studies show. And our mind starts to walk that way and map that way. Like, wow, subconsciously you're thinking America has child protection issues. Wow, like Americans are like beating the hell out of their kids. And this is horrible. And they're spanking and it's bad. And we got to do something about it. And of course, 5 years later, the politician throws it out there in front of you. And they've walked you subconsciously down to this place where you're going to jump on board with, we got to centrally manage parenting because, this is bad. Americans are horrible at raising their children. But we don't stop and look back at history. And we think, we populated an entire freaking planet with parents raising their own children and grandparents raising the grandkids. And handing down the learned lessons, don't do this, do this, do this. And we have all these individual groups of humans raising their children. And over time, we get better and better and better at it. And we compare notes. And this family does that way. And this family does this way. And we, human beings, we've gotten significantly better at raising children. But of course, there's no profit in allowing that to occur. And there's a lot of profit in taking someone's children. And so in walks what's called Title 4E of the Welfare Reform Act. And basically it's a law. And I don't even know if it's still active. I really don't really want to know. Like, I don't care. Everyone wants to talk about the 1800 slavery. Nobody wants to talk about modern slavery, right? Like everybody wants to hoop and holler, yell and scream about slavery 3,000 miles away. Nobody wants to talk about slavery 3 miles away. Everybody wants to talk about China's human rights violations. No one wants to talk about America's. So and that's what the report was there for. It's used to justify cases where they take children. And immediately when you say child protection, I think the average American's like, oh, yeah, well, they're going into homes and, you're physically abusing your children. No, absolutely not. So they passed the law down. And what it basically said is that the federal government pays I think it's up to $150,000 a year for every child in foster care. And while it could have been well-meaning, you know what that's going to do, because we've seen this before. If slavers pay for African slaves or Irish slaves taken from Ireland a certain dollar figure, somebody's going to get a boat, somebody's going to go over there, and somebody's going to get them. That's how it goes. It's supply and demand. So the federal government put this law out there, and they made a business out of human trafficking. And I like to think positively, so I think the states initially got started off in a positive way and said, okay, well, we can use this to get kids out of abused homes and da-da-da-da-da-da. But somewhere along the line, I think they figured out that it's really, really hard to prove abuse. It's really, really hard. Because 9 times out of 10, even the abuser doesn't even know they're being abused. So they weren't really making a lot of money with the program. And I live in a weird world where greed decides these things, right? And so if you're a state, do you want $100 million for the kids you've taken out of child protection, that you've taken into foster care? Or do you want a couple billion? I think there's a very easy answer. We live in a time where states are cash strapped. And we know the results of it because after the Welfare Reform Act passed with Title IV-E and a bunch of others, the family court system became the only profitable department in pretty much all states all around the United States. Some dipped in a lot more than others. And so what they do is they shift and say, well, you know what? If you don't have power, if you get your power turned off, those conditions aren't conducive to raising children. So maybe we need to kind of take the children for a little bit, just until the parent gets the power back on. And so they do that. Well, if the water gets turned off, maybe we need to just, secure those children because kids need water. And you can kind of see where this walks. Well, if the teacher sees a scratch, or the doctor sees bruises from spanking, maybe we need to kind of investigate. And all this stuff, it starts down this well-meaning rabbit hole. We love children. We're going to try to do things for children. But when you put money into into that calculation, into that decision, eventually it's going to become something else. Well, they got their power back on, or they took some classes in parenting, and the kids are already in foster care. And let me see, if we take them out now, that affects the budget, right? Because we get $150,000 a year for this child to be in foster care. And if we take X amount of kids out by this time, we have budgetary requirements by the end of the year. So maybe we'll just leave them in a little longer. Let's just kind of write a little rule that says that the kids stay in a little longer. And so you can kind of see where this is going. I have no interest and okay, that doesn't sound right. I won't say it that way. It is pointless to talk about what's happening in India or China if we are doing it, if our politicians are doing it. If human rights violations are happening at your neighbor's house, why in the world are you worried about human rights violations halfway around the world? We need to clean up our own house before we go clean up anybody else's house. And so this is modern slavery, and it happens every day in this country. I'm going to share something with you. And so the crazy thing is, people are scared to talk about this because some of these groups of thugs, man, children die in foster care, right? One of the last images I have of when I used to deal with child protection, it was we were in Washington, right? We had a march down there, and one of the last evening we were there, we had a lot of the parents who lost kids in foster care, and there was a vigil, right? So they all blew up pictures of their kids, poster size, and they had them all lined up down there. I think at that time we weren't at the Lincoln Memorial. I think we were on the other side of the grass there in Washington. I forgot what it's called. But And then they all lit candles, and the parents stood there. And I can't, it's etched in my brain. I completely, totally can't get it out of my head of looking at the parent. Well, yeah, right, across the mall. Thank you, Lord. Looking at the parents, looking at the grandparents, looking at the brothers and the sisters of these kids who were taken into foster care and died. Some, I think, were taken into foster care and they disappeared, right? Because they won't tell you where the kids are. But most of the ones who they blew up on the posters all lost their lives in foster care. Taken from parents for who knows why, right? Like, I don't even care why. If you're in the business of taking children, one, it's human trafficking, and you're getting paid for it, it's deplorable, right? And we vote for this, right? We vote for politicians who not only do it, who did it, but they still support it today. And the answer might be, say, well, we got to clean it up, and we're working on it. Stop. Throughout human history, it worked without you, and it can work without you again. Now, every decision I make, it goes kind of back to my experiences in corporate America, where if you have a solution and it's fixing the problem or it's addressing the problem, then let's keep it. If you roll out a solution and it's not fixing the problem, it's making things worse, or kids are dying in your care, you have to be deleted. You have to be gone. And that really is my position on that, to be honest with you, because politically, honestly, I don't care about you. Healthcare is a problem, right? Okay. All right. It is. And a lot of the violence in the streets are problems. And we have a lot of problems in this country. But good morning, Claudia. If a person is denied their life or their freedom, I don't want to talk about nothing else. Like, for me, we can't talk politics. We can't talk our lives getting better until people have the right to live, until people have the right to exist outside of a cage and have freedom. We can't talk about. How can I sit here and talk about, I need this tomato plant here to be a certain price, it's overpriced or whatever? How can I talk about that and you have people who don't even have access to their own freedom or dying? And you kind of add into that children. I talk a lot about the warrior gene, right? And I try to push you guys down the direction of, please look at James Fallon. And he wrote a book called The Mind of the Psychopath. And what they discovered in neuroscience is that when you take these children from their mother or their father, that these kids get warrior genes activated, right? Empathy shuts off. These kids, their frontal lobes develop for warrior times. Why? Because it's genetically how we're supposed to work. Something happened to mom and dad. A lion ate them. Another tribe killed them. So I can't have empathy. I live at a horrible time. I've got to fight. I've got to, And so these kids in foster care without their parents are getting warrior genes activated. They don't have empathy and they become violent. We're actually manufacturing psychopaths. And so, not having looked at the studies in a long time, one of the last studies I looked at came out of Texas, and it was a study on Texas prisons, and what it showed was that 80% of the inmates in Texas prisons came from foster care homes. We're manufacturing, like, all of these systems feed together, and it's all modern slavery. And that's kind of what I wanted to put out there. I wanted to put out there that slavery never ended. It never ended. All they did is they got very good at legislating it well and putting together these reports to get very intelligent people, rocket scientists, doctors, lawyers, farmers, to agree that maybe it's a good idea to go this route. And I get that, but when that route is the wrong direction, you have to shut it off. And so what I'm gonna leave it on this, because I like to have a little humor, and I have no humor this morning. I'm highly annoyed because it just brought up some memories, right? I won't go through too many of the details, but I'll simply say this, that how I part of the way I became introduced to these people and what they do is, and honestly, I don't even remember all the details. It's when something happens to you, you block it out, right? Like, you want to make an enemy of me, like you want to make an enemy of somebody, you come for their children. You come for their children, you will make a permanent enemy out of anybody. And those of y'all who used to be active with me, you know that there is no way on this planet that I can get down with the parties that implemented this stuff, because they came from my son. And how it went down was, good morning, Desmond. How you doing, brother? We took him to, he got sick one day, and we took him to a doctor's office, and he had, I think it was just a urinary tract infection. It was just something real simple. But the doctor didn't know what it was. The doctor thought it might be some sort of condition where it's reverse urinary something. I don't even know the medical terms. And my wife at the time and we suspected, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, that's crazy. Like, we've seen this before. He probably just needs some antibiotics, whatever. Stop. This is our baby. We know our baby, stop. Well, they write these laws that require the doctors to go to child protection if you don't do the procedures that they want you to do. So, got a letter from them. We went back and forth for a little while, and I'm like sitting here like, okay, it's like 3 weeks later. I've already talked to these people at child protection a few times, and he's fine. Like 2 days later, he was up, out and about. He's, it's over with. He's back at school. He's having fun. But they still wanted us to go have the procedure done. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell, are you not listening to me? Are you dumb? Are you stupid? The boy is fine. Well, we still want you to have the procedure, and the doctor said, blah, 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 blah. And so, of course, growing up the way I did, I'm sitting here thinking, like, what the hell is going on? Like, and this is, and I'm not going to say the name, but this is why I'm saying, when you're in a situation and you start seeing things that don't add up, one of the things that kind of comes in your mind, you start to think, is this racism? Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you start thinking about the studies into syphilis and what they did to blacks back then. And I'm like, why is this doctor trying to do this procedure, which is largely experimental, on my son? The procedure involved sticking, I think it was a catheter up his penis. And he's a baby. Like, at the time, I think he might have been, my God. So they are thugs, and they got a lot of power. And so they pushed me up to a point where we actually said, okay, maybe we'll just have the test, and maybe they'll get off of our back. And so we got him down there. And so I'm sorry, I jumped around a little bit, but the reason I said that is because sometimes you're in situations, they look racist, they feel racist, you feel like you're being discriminated, and you vent, right? You blow. We've all been there. Maybe not all of us, I'm sorry. Every minority in this country has been there. And a lot of our white brothers and sisters have been there too. And nothing hurts more, nothing, And so when somebody says that they think that they're in some sort of a situation that feels racist, that's not a time to attack them. It's a time to take it seriously. And I won't, again, not going down that route with those details, but some of y'all know what I'm talking about. That's a time to pull the person in and convince them, no, we're not doing that against you. We're not. So they pushed me into it. Took my son down there. Got the doctor, and he started doing the procedure. And I guess it was a type of procedure where you could be in the room. So I'm in the room. And I hear my son scream to holy hell when the doctor starts to shove this thing where he's shoving it. Man, I'm gonna tell you. Okay. The emotions that hit me right then, like, some of y'all think that I'm a pacifist, and I'm not. I am not a pacifist. I know what's in me, and I know what I'm capable of, and I know if you push me, what I can do. And because of that, I've hidden all of that deep down under a whole lot of love because it's the right thing to do. But when I heard my son scream, I kind of turned around, I kind of walked away a little bit, and I kind of just started trying to deal with, what was going on. And God bless nurses, man. I'm going to tell you, I love me some nurses. Oh, the nurse came up to me and she whispered in my ear and she said, sir, you're not supposed to be doing this. They've never done this on a male child that I've ever known. They do this on female child, girls for a reason. They don't do it on boys. He started to do it again. I walked up to the table. I didn't walk up to the table. I went up to the table and the doctor stopped. I think, things happen in life, and I can't even go through the details because I know that I probably said some stuff I shouldn't have said. I didn't touch anybody. I can hold myself, right? And the doctor backed off. I grabbed my son and I told him, I said, you can do anything you want with child protection. Send them to my door. But we all gonna be on the news. But you will not do that to my son again. And we left. And of course they and there's a reason why I'm telling you this story. They man, I'm sorry. My knee is shaking, man. That was one I did not want to bring that one up, but I'm trying to tell you this for a reason. So, and I'm done. I'm going to tell you this for a reason. So, days later, they gave me a call and they were like, okay, well, so, what we're going to do is we want to get your son back and have the procedure, finish the procedure. We were told, the doctor said that they weren't allowed to finish. And I told him flat out, I said, I think that you're experimenting on my son. You hurt my son. And my next phone call is going to be to a lawyer. And this was a low-level person in child protection. And he said, well, sir, hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. And he went away for a couple minutes. And he came back and he said, okay, sir, I want you to talk to my supervisor. And he got the supervisor on the phone. And he said, so, sir, he's telling me what's going on. I was talking to my person. I said, I don't really care what you think is going on. I said that my next phone call is to my lawyer. I said, I'm done with this game. My son is fine. He's not sick. And you're trying to experiment on him. And I think I know what's going on. And he said, well, sir, just hold on. Let me check the notes, blah, 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 blah. He went off. And he came back. Said, well, I'm looking at the case and it, it looks like, yeah, this probably, is something that we can close. And I think we're going to close that. I think we're just going to close this case. I said, I hope that you do. But, and I threw the lawyer thing back out there. And the reason why I'm saying that is that these systems are designed for trafficking, right? Like since the beginning of time, we've made money on human capital, and that's what they do. And what you sometimes need to demonstrate is that you have the resources and the ability to defend yourself and defend your children. They come for these kids who they think come from homes they can easily take them from. And, so, man, I don't have anything funny to say today. I kind of I just brought some stuff up in me, and so I'm kind of thinking through it. But So read what I posted this morning. Just kind of take a look at it. I want people to focus on, we really need to focus on what the real problems in this country are. And one of the real problems, we can't talk about high level rights until everybody has a right to have a child, be a parent, right? To have freedom and to be not be thrown into these criminal slave type system. That's how they've always made money from us, and that's how they still make money from us. And they do it because we are not a united force. We are not parents who've all come together and said enough is enough. We're not Democrats and Republicans who come together and say, you know what, we're done fighting about little silly petty stuff. We're not dealing with this anymore. You're not coming to our communities and taking our kids anymore. You're not throwing our kids in prison. And until we come together across the lines, until you put down your ego, we're not going to get anywhere. So yeah, I got you, Brother Desmond, and you're right. And it's the family court system, and that's why they're the number one profitable department in all states. It's because of this social engineering that they do. So I recommend y'all take a look at it. It was something that kind of can touch close to my heart and my family and a lot of the friends and families of the people I know, and they're all Democrats and they're Republicans. But these are the laws and the things that they get away with because we can't be a united front. So, man, I'm gonna have to drop. Y'all have a good day.